about how to supercharge your 2025 to be the best and most productive year yet, even though it's February. So if you haven't done your goals yet, make sure to listen in and apply this. And even if you already have it and you don't feel like it's like the perfect fit, or maybe you want to do more with your goals, also listen in. I'm really excited. So now let's get into it. We're chatting about 5 steps to supercharge your 2025 so you can have the best and most productive year yet. Another way to put it is why most goals fail and the simple fix to make 2025 your most productive year yet. I'm super excited to share that with you guys because that has been an anthem for me in the past. So now let's get into today's episode. Step number 1 is pray about your year, right? First things first, in order to have a successful year, it's important that we surrender the year to God, right? It's really important. The Bible says that He can do exceedingly abundantly above anything that we can think, ask, or imagine. And I can 100% attest to this time and time again in my life. I know that there have been moments where I dream about something, I set a goal, or I pray about something, I ask God for something. And my gosh, like He supersedes that. Like, sometimes the goal will happen faster than I imagined. The blessing will come quicker than I could have ever thought. It's really time and time again, I've seen it play out in my life. And if I've seen it play out in my life, I know without a shadow of a doubt that it can happen for you. So please don't underestimate the power of, praying about your year, right? Setting aside that time to really, ask God, would you direct my steps? Would you lead me in this year? Because what He has for you, I can attest, is so much bigger than what you can dream for yourself. So if praying isn't something that, it's really your thing, as far as maybe it intimidates you, or maybe you just don't know how to apply prayer to this, don't worry, I got you, right? I would advise you to start by setting aside some alone time for all the steps that I'm going to share with you guys today. It's important that you set aside that alone time, but this one especially, it's really important that you get away from people and just have that alone time, pull out the journal and just really start thinking and praying, right? I think the importance of this is because if you don't do this step, it's going to kind of be more difficult to do the following steps, right? Because this step of praying really starts getting you into a grateful place, right? You can start dreaming and start, if you're not in a grateful place right now, as far as like you're not grateful for the things you have, then it's really hard to even think or imagine that your big beautiful dreams could happen later in the year, right? Or later, next year, over the next 10 years. It's really hard to be in that place if you're in an ungrateful moment right now, right? And this step, the first step of praying and surrendering your year to God, really gets you in that grateful place, right? How do you do this? Like I said, you can, start by being grateful, thanking Him for all the blessings you have in your life at the moment. And if it's hard to think of blessings, a way or a hack to do this is to break it down. Even if you don't love your job, for example, you can, break it down by thanking Him that you have the ability to work, right? You have the ability that you are healthy enough to get out of bed and to go to your job. Even if that's like logging on from your house or commuting or whatever, you are healthy enough to work, right? And so if something is hard to thank God for, start breaking it down and be like, okay, God, but you gave me the ability, or you made me smart enough for this role, right? Like I wouldn't have my intelligence if it wasn't for you. So start by breaking down the blessings into really bite-sized pieces. And then I would apply this to all areas of my life, right? Like I said, it's really essential that you do it in all areas, but you can, thank God if you're having issues with your family, thank God that you even have a family, or thank God, if you have a relative that's difficult, well, thank God that they're alive, or, there's so many ways to break this down, right? So I would suggest applying it to all areas of your life. And then once you start doing this, you're going to start seeing that you have way more blessings than you imagine, right? You actually have a pretty good life, all things considered, right? Even, I don't want to minimize any difficult seasons that anyone's going through or any trauma. That stuff is very real. But if we take a few steps back, we can see that we have a lot more blessings than we know, than we think of daily. So this is a really good step to start that, right? It's, start by asking Him to lead the year ahead, to guide you, to protect you, or some things you could say, to direct your steps into the best that He has for you in all areas. Surrender and dedicate the year to Him, and then ask Him for the things that you have on your heart. For example, I'm asking for vision, for fresh vision for this podcast. I'm asking for direction. I'm just asking for fresh ideas for this podcast. I'm asking for favor with this podcast. I'm asking God that He would multiply my reach, and that I would continue to make valuable content, right? I don't want to make stale content. I want to make content that's really relevant to you and really helpful. And so those are some of the things that I'm praying for, right? That He would just expand my capacity, that I can do this and do all the things that I have on my plate, and that I could and for his favor and for him to open doors that I could not imagine, And he's, like I said, he's done it in my life in other areas. And I believe that he can do it for this podcast as well. And I believe that he can do it for you and whatever your dreams are, right? So, you can ask this for whatever area, whether you're asking God for a new business this year, whether you're asking for a relationship, where you're at for a relationship or for a family matter, or if you are asking God to expand your family or maybe to get into that college or that university that you really want to get into, or finish the book that you started writing 3 years ago, but you haven't gotten back to, or launch the podcast, whatever that is, start asking God, whatever is on your heart, whatever dreams you have, this is a place to really submit them to God, ask him, and just pray for it before you even start the next step. So that's step number one. Step number two, now that you're in a good place and you're just feeling very grateful, it's to start dreaming, right? This one is my favorite. Some people call it imagining, some people call it dreaming, whatever you want to call it. Like it's basically looking at all the possibilities, right? What could this year look like? If 2025 is your best year of your life, what could that look like? If you struggle with this, like with dreaming, I would suggest that maybe you pause and you take out a journal and a pen and start writing this out, because I'm going to give you some prompts, some questions. Maybe write down the questions and see what comes to mind when if this will hopefully get the juices flowing if this is something that you're struggling with, right? So ask yourself questions like, what places could you go in 2025? And you don't have to be restricted. Like this could be like, maybe you don't have the funds for it right now, but if you could dream, like where could you go in 2025? Like what could be a big dream for you as travel wise for 2025, right? In what areas would you grow? What would you start a healthy journey or a new health journey? And what could that look like? Would you lose the weight that you've been trying to lose for years? Would you finish writing the book? Like I said, would you, get a new job in your industry with better pay and better benefits and a great boss that loves you and really values your input? Would you start that side business? Would you finish that degree? Would you, like I mentioned, launch that podcast? Would you, be a more intentional, invested mother? Would you up your financial knowledge? There's so many ways that you can start dreaming. It's basically dreaming of the woman that you want to become or the person that you want to become this year, right? Like, who could you be? In what areas of your life? Like, what could dream, like, and you can apply this to all areas: marriage, family, friendships, health, work, career, business, in literally all areas. If you want to be more intentional as a friend and reach out to more people and have a coffee date, that's one of my goals, to have a coffee date each month, right? Or to call people more often or text people more often, check in on people. There's so many ways where you could really apply this, right? So when you start dreaming, what could the year look like? And hopefully this gets the juices flowing for dreaming. For example, I'll give you an example run, like for 2020, one of the goals that we set for like travel was we wanted to, travel different places, and my husband's been having it on his like vision board, if you will, or just it's been on our radar for years, like because we had to cancel a trip many years ago to Colorado. And so this year, last month we went for his birthday to Vail, Colorado, and we went skiing for the first time. And man, that was a great vacation. We really recharged, regrouped. We just felt so refreshed afterwards. It was our first solo trip since becoming, since our daughter was born, and we so needed it. It was just like us two, and it was great for our marriage. It was great for all things, all around. And so, what could that look like for you? Like, what could be a trip that you could finally go on this year that you maybe like can't imagine it? Maybe right now it seems unrealistic because in the beginning of the year it seems unrealistic for us, but it happened, and I'm so grateful that it did, right? And what's important about these trips is I think a little understated fact is I read a few months ago that when you go away on travel, there's something that happens, like your mind becomes more open. You become more open to learning if you're in a different environment instead of like the same old house. An example of this was over the summer, we went to Chicago to visit my family. I'm from Chicago originally. And like we went to go visit family for a couple of weeks. And we also went to visit some friends that had recently moved back to Michigan from Miami. And while we were on the road trip from Chicago to Michigan, we put on these like two audiobooks because we love doing that when we do road trips. And we put on these two financial books, about like financial knowledge and all that. And I don't know, I kid you not, I've always had this like limiting belief or these thoughts around money. Like I'm not capable of being like, I always thought I was not good at math as a child. That was like something that I really believed. And I just hated math. Right. And so I applied that as an adult to money. Like I'm not good at money. Because I'm not good at math and all the things. And I just like overwhelmed myself with money all the time. But let me tell you that on that trip from Chicago to Michigan, listening to two books about finances, and maybe because they're relatable, they were millennials, like they're just the way that they spoke about money made it so easy. And I feel like, oh my God, I finally learned about finances. Like I finally learned, like I feel like my husband's been good about it, but I feel like I personally haven't, you know? And I feel like because I was on the road, because I was already seeing like a new, new things around me, I was able to really like capture that and really like receive that information in a different way because I'm like driving through Michigan, I'm listening to this book about finances, and somehow the things just clicked for the first time in my life, you know? And so there's so much importance to travel. So that's just been a little tangent on travel, but, start dreaming about what your year could look like in all areas, as far as travel, as far as, the goals, your career, your professional goals, all the things that you have. Start dreaming because it makes all the difference. And so that is number two. Again, another thing that before I move on to number three, another thing that you could think of if it's still a struggle is what are some things that you're unhappy with in your life, right? What is an area maybe that you're unhappy with in your life? And what are the steps and the things that you could take in order to make yourself happy in that area? What could be a goal that you could set in the area of your life where you're unhappy or feeling frustrated or feeling stuck that could really propel you into being happy next year in that area, right? Sometimes it seems impossible, but if you think about it that way, I think that could help. So that's number two, to start dreaming, right? Number three is once you have thought up some big, beautiful, audacious dreams for the year ahead, it's time to set SMART goals, right? SMART goals is an acronym, right? So it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals, right? This is really good because, I know people that are like, I want to be a better person next year. I want to be a better friend. Okay, but what does that look like? You have to create really specific goals and really, like I said, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound goals, right? So specific, let's go into that. Specific goals are, they may be limited to a single area of your life. Instead of trying to be a better person or trying to focus on listening skills or positive self talk, you could be really specific about it. Like, I want to, be like a very specific goal could, for example, weight loss, right? For me, a journey that I'm on is I want to lose weight because I am 20 pounds heavier now than I was when I had my son, 5 years ago, right? And so I want to lose about 20 pounds, right? So a goal for me could be like, I want to lose weight, right? That's very specific. That's not just like, I want to be healthy. I do want to be healthy too. So I'm not saying I don't, but I'm just saying that's a specific goal, right? Because we'll kind of know, right? If I reach that or not. So that's a specific goal of like losing weight. It's not just being healthier. It's not general like that. It's like, I want to lose weight. That's a specific within that space, right? Measurable is the next point. And measurable is the goal must align with explicit metrics such as saving a specific amount of money, qualifying for a particular certification. This indicates that you've accomplished your mission, right? So with what I mentioned of like wanting to lose that postpartum weight that I've had on for years with my first and second child, that's really, it can be specific, right? So now if I attribute the number, like I want to lose 20 pounds, that's very specific. Like at the end of the year, I'll know like, dang, like I did not lose 20 pounds. Like I only lost 5 pounds, which is still good. I'm not, or I only lost 15 pounds, which is excellent. Actually, like if I'm 15 pounds lighter, I think I'll be happy, with that outcome for my goals. But it's being really specific about what your goals are, right? Like when I get that master's, like when you get that degree, like that's an achievable goal. Like that's a metric, right? Or if you want to save $20,000 this year for a down payment for your house for next year, or 50,000, whatever that number looks like that's very specific. So it needs to be very specific, measurable, right? So specific and measurable, and that's very measurable, right? Because there's a number that you can attribute to that. So take your goal and attribute a specific thing to it, a specific number, a specific outcome that then you'll know, okay, I reached it or I didn't reach it, right? So I can't say like, oh, I just want to have a successful podcast. I have to add a specific number. So I have to add a specific number in front of like how many downloads do I want to have or how much subscribers or whatever, that goal is to make it a little bit more specific, right? The next thing is attainable, right? It needs to be attainable. So the goal needs to be somewhat realistic. It needs to be realistic. Maybe you won't qualify for Olympic, basketball team if you've never played basketball. Maybe that's a little bit unrealistic if I was to say that, right? But but I can get better at free throws, or I can get better at, I can, if I want to, let's see, another attainable, like, for example, for me, like one day, like what if I wrote a book? Like a lot of people want to be like New York Times bestselling authors. Like that's a huge goal, I think, for a lot of speakers, a lot of different people, a lot of people in, the podcast space, I imagine as well. And so anyways, that's a very ambitious goal, right? But maybe the goal is really like, okay, that's not a realistic goal for this season. So let me be realistic with myself. That's not my goal in 2025, right? Like, let me take like 5 steps back, but maybe in 2030, maybe that'll be a realistic goal. Or maybe in 2035 or 2040, that'll be a realistic goal in that season, And so it's just being really realistic, because you don't want to be like, oh my gosh, I want to be a millionaire. If that's not even like, you're not close, you don't have a true, like, again, God can do anything. So I'm not like saying that can't happen, but I'm just saying be realistic with it, because you also don't want to be disappointed and really hard on yourself. The point is to motivate yourself and to get better this year so you can be better next year, and just to constantly be growing and improving, right? So you don't want something that's going to be really out of your league, really unattainable, and then you're going to be really down on your goals and not really go for them, and like, cash out on your goals in February, no, or in March. That's not what we want. We want you to be working towards your goals the whole year, so you can feel amazing about yourself and you can feel great about the person that you're becoming, right? So it's got to be attainable. Right. So it can be ambitious, but it's got to be attainable. And so the next one is relevant, right? So goals should move you in the direction of your values, dreams, and ambitions, right? So one of the things that's really important to me on my journey, I mentioned in the last episode, was this whole health thing. And I've become kind of somewhat of, I know the term crunchy mom. I'm a little bit like that. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but basically I'm big on ingredients now. And I started just seeing, like, for example, I noticed like 3 years ago that red dye 40 is like I read that's in almost all kid products, or almost all kid snacks. And I noticed that, wow, almost all the snacks we were giving my son had red dye 40 in it. And I also noticed he was acting very hyperactive. Yes, he was a toddler about to be a kid, but even so, we noticed a difference when we took away like foods and snacks with red dye 40 in it. So that just started me on this whole journey, that in the gestational diabetes that I talked about in the last episode. If you haven't listened yet, go back and listen. I spill all the tea on all the things of this last year. But anyways, I'm on this overall health journey, right? I want my kids to eat better. I want myself and my husband to eat better. We're cooking more. We're eating less things with preservatives. We're eating more, like proteins and salads or vegetables, and we're just being more intentional about what we eat, right? And so that excuse me, that goes along with my journey of wanting to lose weight, right? So me saying I want to lose 20 pounds and I want to start going to the gym and I want to get fit and all these things, that is aligned with my values, the value system that I have here of wanting to be healthy, of wanting for my whole family to eat better and, feel better and have more nutritious meals. It all couples together. So that makes sense. So this goal is something that makes sense. It's not something out of left field that has nothing to do with my overall purpose, my overall morals, all the things, the values in my life. This is very much a value in my life. And so this all makes sense, right? So then it would be a relevant goal to me. Maybe I'm trying to think of something that wouldn't be a relevant goal. Maybe the Olympic basketball team, right? That I mentioned, that's not really relevant to me. I like basketball, watching it a little bit because I'm from Chicago and I love the Bulls, of course, because I'm from the Dynasty. I grew up in the Dynasty area, but yeah, I'm not like a huge, I haven't played basketball since I was in 5th grade. Like I was pretty good in 5th grade, but I haven't played it since 5th grade. So it's not really something that makes sense. You can always pick up a hobby that may, if you can tie it to your overall value system, but that's just not super relevant to the season that I'm in, or, who knows about the future, but it's just not relevant right now. So anyways, it's not relevant. So it has to be relevant for your goals should move in the direction of your values, right? Time bound. It needs to be time bound. It needs to be specific. So in this episode, we're casting vision or setting goals for 2025, right? So the time bound, it is time bound, right? Because you are going to know at the end of 2025 on December 31st, the year is going to end and you're going to know, did I reach my goals for the year or did I not, right? And so that is very time bound. Some people set 5-year goals, 10-year goals. I usually tend not to do that. I like to do 1-year goals and then I kind of break it down into quarters to make it a little bit more digestible, less overwhelming. And I'm actually going to do another episode about like quarter goals and how to make it less overwhelming and create better systems around it and all the things. So stay tuned for that. But it's really important that your goals be time bound. Maybe it's not a full year goal. Maybe you're like, over the summer, I want to, go visit family or want to go on this one trip, and maybe you're going to work to make extra money to make that trip happen. Well, that's like something that's going to happen specifically in the summer. So it is time bound, right? It's not like, endless journey of getting to this goal. Like that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to do time bound specific things to really push us forward and get us moving, right? So it's got to be time bound. And like I mentioned, we'll do quarterly goals in another episode. I'm really excited about that. So it's not too overwhelming, but this is for your full year, right? Like what could your year look like, right? Number 4 is to create systems to help you achieve your goals. Man, I love this one. One of the things that I did while I was away on my maternity leave, I keep saying maternity leave, was reading a lot of books that I haven't had on my agenda and my to-do list for years. I read 7 Habits of Highly Effective Leaders. Finally finished the book. I started that in 2013, maybe 2014, and finally finished it. Another book that I read was Atomic Habits. My husband read that probably in like 2015 and loved it, and I hadn't read it, and it was on my to-do list for years. And Atomic Habits was such a game changer for me. It was such a good book, and one of the quotes in it I love, and I think it's so true, right? You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And that's by the author of Atomic Habits. I believe his name is James Clear. And it's such a good quote, right? You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. What does systems means? What does that look like? That means you can have all the beautiful goals in the world, relevant, time bound, all these great goals. But if you don't help yourself out by creating systems around your goals, you're not going to meet your goals. And that has happened to me time and time again. And that is why I'm so passionate about creating systems around my goals now, because it's not me and it's not you. We're not the problem. The thing is, we're setting ourselves up for failure when we don't create systems around our goals. What does that look like? For example, I want to go to the gym 3 times a week, right? What are the systems to help me go to the gym, right? We signed up in a gym where they have childcare. So now I have and it's a great childcare system. So I can now leave my daughter there for about an hour while I work out. So that's great. That resolved one big issue that I had. Another system is putting out my clothes. My husband's big on this, putting out clothes the night before, because if you wake up in the morning and you put on your gym clothes right away, you're most likely going to go to the gym, right? Because you're already wearing the clothes. You already won half of the battle. You already made it easy, right? So the book really talks about, and I can do another episode in the future where I break down a lot of this. If you want, let me know. Let me know if if that's something I highly recommend the book. But if it's something that you would love to see or hear about on the podcast, let me know. But anyways, he talks about removing obstacles and making the situation easier, right? Taking away all the obstacles, right? If obstacles are, I get home from work and I'm so tired, I don't want to change my clothes. Well, then take your clothes with you to work so that you put it on before you leave your job. That way, when you're driving home and you get tired, you're already dressed for it. Or maybe the system is not going home after work, but going straight to the gym and then going home for dinner, if that's a season of life that you can do that in, right? Or a system that I used to do when I worked in my corporate job was, we had a gym in the building, actually in the building next door, but during my lunch break, I would go out, I would put on my gym clothes and I would quickly run to the gym, do a 30-minute workout, and then I would come back to my office and, heat up my food and eat at my desk the last 20 minutes. And for me, that worked because that's the only way in that season that I could get the gym in, because I had such a crazy busy season for that. So it's just creating systems that that help you be successful with whatever the goal is, right? For example, another one that was big with all transparency is, I've been wanting to do this podcast for a long time, but I also have a toddler. I have about she's 15 months old. So I have a full-blown toddler right now, and that is hard. Their schedules sometimes are crazy. She's transitioning out. It's just very crazy and very unpredictable. She could wake up in the middle of a podcast episode. So we created the system of, we get help one day a week or for a few hours a week so that I can actually record this, right? Because if not, I don't have the system in order to actually do this, right? So creating systems that help you be successful and remove the obstacles are going to make you a lot more likely to do that goal, right? To get to the gym 3 times a week, if that's your goal, or to, in my case, do the podcast, whatever your goal looks like. Make your life as easy as possible and create the systems that support you so that you can accomplish what you've set out and you've said that's important for you for your year, right? And we can do it's also important, we can do a whole other episode on this, I was going to say, but it's also important that you do a weekly systemize your life. If that's something that interests you, let me know. My husband and I, actually, a previous guest on the show, Chelsea Joe, she was on, when was it? Chelsea Joe was on maybe like the end of maybe summer of 2023. And she was so great. She created this course called Systemize Your Life. And if you're interested in that, let me know too, because I think I have a discount with it. I'll look for that. But she's so great. We took her course and it was so helpful. It really helped us get our calendars, our short calendars intact and all the things. And we do a weekly meeting where we check in, plan the week ahead, get on the same page so we can really execute and do all the things that are on our plate. So let me know if Systemizing Your Life, or you can go back and check out that episode. It's called Systemize Your Life. Go back and listen to it. She gives some great gems there. Her systems, they are impeccable. They're so helpful. And I can also do an episode in the future where I kind of break that down for you too. So let me know. Feel free to reach out to me via email, Instagram, all the things, and I will, and just let me know. So, anyways, that is creating the systems. That is such an important one. Number 5 is write it down. The studies conclude that anywhere from 50 to 80% of people who have written down their goals achieve their goals and achieve them, while only 10% of people who are not writing down their goals achieve them, right? So what does that mean? That 50 to 80% of people that take time like you are right now in the beginning of the year and write down their goals for the year, they get to their goals, they achieve their goals, they achieve most of their goals. Like that is a huge percentage versus 10% that don't write it down. So I feel like if you're setting yourself up with probability wise or goal wise, like I'd rather take a shot with the first group, which is like 50 to 80% that are going to achieve their goals if they write it down. There's a lot of power in it. Even the Bible says write it down, make the vision clear, right? And so it's important that whatever your goals are for the year, you have to write them down. There's so much power in that. There's some power for you. There's power for others. When they see you write down your goals, they can keep you accountable. You know, maybe your husband can keep you accountable, your sister, your friend. As you write down your goals and you're very clear on them, you probably start to communicate them better. You're probably more confident in them because you're like, this is what I set out as a goal, right? It's also great for you as guidelines and guardrails. For example, if I just like I know what my goals are for this year, right? So now if an opportunity, a career, a job, or whatever, an opportunity comes by and it's like out of left field and it sounds good, but it's really going to derail me from all the goals that I really spent time with, talking to God, praying, searching myself, reflecting and seeing what I really wanted for this year, what was best for my family and just all the things. And I set out these goals. If it's going to majorly derail me, and it's not something like out of my control, it's not something that's a necessity, then you know what? Now I have guardrails and I'm probably going to be likely to view it and be like, this is a good opportunity, but it's not a great opportunity, or it's a good opportunity, but it's not right for me, right? Because I already created my goals. I already know what I want for this year. I already know where I'm going. And now this is going to really throw me off, right? And so that's the case for everything in your life, all areas of your life. Like some things can come in and you're going to kind of have a better understanding. Of course, things that are within your control. Of course, it's not like an illness or like when a lot of, some things can derail us and that's totally okay. I've had a lot of seasons where I wanted to do something and because of different reasons that are beyond my control, I couldn't. And I just had to be real with myself. And maybe that's where you're in and that's okay too, but I'm talking about if it's a normal year and there's nothing crazy going on and you can do it, then don't let yourself be thrown off because you don't have it written down and you're not clear on it, right? Because it's going to remind you if you write it down now and you don't even look at it, but you look at it in August, guess what? It's going to remind you, oh my gosh, in January, Paola in January wanted this. Let me become the woman and finish off the year strong that me in January wanted to be, right? So it's super important that you write it down, that you are very clear on your goals for the year and really go for it, right? Specific goals down. Like I said, the SMART goals, right? Make it like what we talked about, SMART goals and cast that vision, right? So, a bonus thing that I was going to tell you guys was I can attest to this one as well. In 20, I think it was 20, we've done this in various years. Like my husband and I usually at the end of the year, right after Christmas, that week between Christmas and New Year's, we usually try to do like a coffee date where we, just us, where we get out of the house, get out of our normal setting, and come with like our journals, our agendas, our books, and we really start writing down like, okay, what could this year look like? Like what we both sit down and we're like, what are your goals? Like, what are our individual financial goals, physical goals, spiritual goals, marriage goals, children goals, all the things. We break it down and then we come together and we talk about it. We're like, okay, what does your goal look like? Okay. And then we have accountability. A lot of the times they're mutual goals. And then after we do that, then we create kind of like a vision for our family and direction for that year. Right. And that is so helpful for us because then we can create really specific goals and, know when to say yes, when to say no to things. It's just so helpful in so many ways. So, anyways, in 2022, I can remember vividly that we did our vision planning, and then I remember my husband was really adamant about like writing it down and bullet pointing. I think we did a vision board this year, but also he did this huge poster board with all of the like our bullets, like our shared goals for the year, and he put it up in our room. It wasn't the most like sightly thing. It wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing thing in our apartment at that time in our room. But guess what? Every single day we saw those goals, and every single day. And let me tell you that a huge percentage of those goals, I think back to the goals that we had, and I think one was like buying a house, another one was like having a healthy baby and a healthy pregnancy, helping my mom move to Florida. There were so many things that like I look back and I'm like, man, those were some big goals, and they happened, right? And they happened. Like I would say probably 60% of the things that we wrote on that year happened, and I'm like blown away because those were some pretty big goals at the time. And so I say that as a word of encouragement to you because even if you write some audacious goals down, they seem kind of crazy, but the more you look at it, the more you get it in your mind, the more that you continue to walk towards that with purpose, with intentionality, the more you're going to get there. So I'm really believing that 2025 is going to be your best year yet. If you follow these 5 steps, it's going to be incredible. And I'm just so excited for you. So, well, there you have it. 5 steps to supercharge your year so that you can have the best 2025 yet, the most productive year yet. And I'm just so excited for you. So thanks again for joining us, and I hope to see you next time.